Here's the reality. Consistent sales activities produce consistent sales results. Random sales activities produce random sales results. Random sales activities will never accidentally start producing consistent sales results. Just doesn't happen that way. As I always say, you can't focus on consistently doing the right things and accidentally produce the wrong results. One difficult aspect of being a professional salesperson is managing the emotional roller coaster that accompanies sales up and downs, managing the emotional peaks and valleys. Having a process will make your sales results way more predictable. As you practice and refine your sales process, you'll find things are effective for different prospects, and you never know what a prospect's trigger might be. When you practice and repeat, you won't accidentally skip an element that's an effective part of your sales process. Think about how your company's operations would go. What would the quality of the product be if the people in these positions did not use a process? Think about the quality of the manufacturing, the quality of the service. There'd be serious problems if people in operations did not follow the process. We have to have the same commitment to process on the sales side. The operative word here is process. Have and use a consistent process. This is how quality is maintained and good results are expected. The process is necessary, but in order to be followed, it has to be an easy process, has to be easy to use and easy to implement. Because if it's overly complicated and restrictive, people simply won't use it. The confused mind says no. Let me share a story with you that illustrates how powerful a simple sales process can be. I learned this from a guy named Joe the Concrete Guy. For years, I lived in the mountains west of Colorado Springs, and every day when I would drive down to the city, I passed the Hungry Bear restaurant, and there was a white Ford pickup there almost every morning. On the side, it said Joe the Concrete Guy and a phone number. And I remember thinking each morning, what a short, sweet marketing message that was. Years went by, and about 2 years after I was living there, I was out in my driveway one day, and I realized that I needed some concrete steps poured at the end of my driveway. So naturally, I thought of Joe the Concrete Guy. So the next day, I pulled to the restaurant, I got the phone number, and called Joe up. A couple of days after that, he comes out to my house. When Joe pulls on my driveway, he was exactly what I expected him to be. Long bushy hair, long beard, shorts, flip-flops, and a t-shirt. There was nothing pretentious, nothing slick about Joe the Concrete Guy. So as I showed Joe where I wanted these steps, I asked him at one point, I said, Joe, how much will it cost to put some steps here? He said, well, that depends a great deal on whether or not you want it to crack next spring or if you never want it to crack. I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, if you don't care if it cracks next spring, I know a guy will do it for $300 or $400. But if you want me to do it and you want it to stay the way it's supposed to for years and years of the spring thaw, it's going to cost you probably $1,000, $1,200. So right away I said, okay, Joe, of course I want it done right, so I want you to do it. So Joe and I began to talk about doing the steps, and at one point I looked over at Joe, and Joe was looking at a motorcycle trailer that I had parked next to my driveway in the dirt and the rocks. At one point Joe says to me, he goes, do you mind if I ask you a question? Why is your motorcycle trailer parked in the dirt and the rocks? And I looked at it and I said, well, Joe, as you can obviously see, my driveway is not wide enough to park the trailer on. Joe looks at me and he says, when I'm here pouring the steps, I could widen your driveway. And immediately my budget went from $1,000 or $1,200 to, $6,000 or $8,000, whatever it was to have the whole driveway done. It was an amazing use of a simple technique to find out what's going on and to offer me additional solutions. Once we did all the paperwork, I asked Joe, I said, Joe, that was a spectacular use of the technique to increase the average ticket. Joe looks at me and says, technique, what are you talking about? It's common sense. He said, Mr. Long, let me explain something to you. I've been pouring concrete in these mountains for 40 years. And what I learned a long time ago is that if I want to feed my family, if I want to pay my bills, I have a very simple job. And that is every time I walk on someone's property, I look for every problem that concrete can solve. And I let people know. Now let me ask you a question. Was Joe high pressure? Was Joe a slick salesman? Of course not. Joe was the consummate sales professional. He looks for problems and he offers solutions. That's what sales is all about. Build a relationship, identify the problems, solve the problems, and ask for the order. I want to share with you a few of the simple lessons I've learned in my sales career. Number one, you only get paid for the last few minutes of a sales call, and it depends on whether or not you get that signature. The reality is you can spend 2 hours with a prospect, and if you don't get that signature, well, you're just a brilliant conversationalist. You're an unpaid consultant. You get paid for the last couple of minutes. It's kind of weird when you think about it. I mean, with your retirement, how much money you have in the bank, where you go on vacation, all these issues depend on what you do the last couple of minutes of a sales call. You got to remember, too, that prospects often never call back or even remember your name. A presentation can go beautifully, but just when you think the deal is done, prospects will tell you they need to think about it, and then they'll never return your phone call. Here's another one. Sometimes a sale can be within an inch of your grasp, and then suddenly out of nowhere, your prospect says they need additional quotes or additional information. You also have to remember that prospects will do anything to postpone the pain of making the purchasing decision. I learned in my career that buyers are not liars. They're just afraid of getting ripped off. I also learned that if I didn't get really good at dealing and countering all the excuses, justifications, and postponements, I'd never be anything more than an unpaid consultant. I learned that dwelling on the past distracts you from the present moment where real life is happening. I want to talk to you about the foundations of how I developed my sales process. You know, when I was in prison all those years, I studied from the legendary Tom Hopkins. One thing I learned from Tom is how to use a sales process to earn the trust of your prospects. So I focused systematically on earning and building trust during my sales career. Earning trust goes a long ways towards minimizing risk, which makes it easier for people to say yes to you. Later on, I read Stephen Covey's book, The Speed of Trust, and I learned that specific activities designed to communicate high character and high confidence can help you be way more successful in your sales career. We will cover these in depth later on. You just don't leave it to chance. Later on in my sales career, I began to use some of the work developed by Robert Cialdini. You know, he is the father of influence and persuasion in sales and business and marketing. And there's a lot of powerful research. The consistency principle that Dr. Cialdini discusses really stands for a simple proposition. Public declarations dictate future actions. People will tend to take actions consistent with their words. I remember reading that article in American Scientific Mind, and I right away saw the implications of my sales career. If I could get my customers to make public declarations that price was not the most important factor, they didn't need to talk to my competition, that they could let me know today whether or not I'm a good fit, if I could get them to make those statements, they become more likely than not to do business with me. So I began to incorporate the work of Cialdini into my sales process. We'll get into a great level of detail about the research and the studies that determine how people make the decisions they make and what drives their behaviors at the end of the sales process. You know, consistency is the core of the prosperity mindset that has fueled my personal transformation and redemption. We tend to take actions with the things we habitually tell ourselves. Private declarations also dictate future actions. Changing the conversation I was having in my head changed everything in my life. Our private declarations drive our emotions and, of course, our actions and our results. But public declarations also dictate future actions. We're predisposed to take actions with the things that we say to ourselves and the things you say to other people. You now have others to be accountable to. Cialdini was saying that people will make logical choices that are consistent with previously declared statements. They said yes because it made logical and rational sense to take actions that will reinforce their previously declared beliefs and convictions. As I designed consistency activities and incorporated them into my sales process and combined those with the trust activities, my sales career began to come into full bloom. My confidence in this process allowed me to start my own company, hire and train a powerful sales team. Within 60 months, I grew that company to over $20 million in sales and was selected by Inc. magazine as one of the fastest growing small companies in America. The three components that I have found to selling any product or service is very simple. Number one, running every call with passion and purpose. Number two, diagnosing problems and recommending solutions like a boss and asking for the trust every single time. So you must understand the need for the process. Many sales professionals reject the idea of a process altogether, preferring to rely on their own communication skills and ability to just wing it. But don't justify not having a process with the excuse that you're an excellent communicator or that you've got great people skills. Take the time to study and master your sales process. Let's face it, we're humans, and humans sometimes forget things. If you forget something that's a key element that influences a purchasing decision, you're going to have a problem. Here's the reality. You're way more effective when you have a routine and a process to follow. Think about how you wash your car, take a shower, or mow the lawn. You do it systematically. You work your way through the process and routine, or do you randomly select where to start, what's next, and where to finish? When you routinely do something the same way each time, you're less likely to miss anything. You may develop your own process, and it may look different from mine, but you'll have a process that is comfortable to you and that you use every single time. Having a process keeps you on track and helps prevent forgetting an important step. It makes us more consistent. Consistent results come from consistent sales activities. The process also allows you to stay focused even with distractions all around you. Learning the process will take some time, but you'll find it worth every minute. It will transform your sales career. Is it difficult to learn the process? Sure it is. But what I always say to my staff and to my son, we don't have the luxury of doing only the easy things in life. We must do the hard things and the easy things.